Welcome to a new YEV podcast. It's the car podcast where we discuss cars, generally EVs, but in a balanced way. My name's Tim Aylen. I've got Kevin Booker and Alex Grant with me, and we're going to chew the fat, talk about EV news, and discuss the contentious and all those other wonderful word issues when it comes to EVs. So, it's been a busy week. I've just come back from Tesla Supercharged show yesterday. I've got a mountain of editing to do because that was an amazing event. Just watched Johnny Smith's new video on Late Break Show. He just bought a P90D Tesla 65 plate, 260 odd thousand miles for $5,500 through the auction, including fees. So go and check out that video. That's really good. But yeah, Kevin, what have you been up to?
So I've been testing one of the newest generation of plug-in hybrids. I mean, hear me out here, because a lot of people don't like plug-in hybrids. This one has over 38 kilowatt hours of battery and can do 90 miles. So that actually can do more miles pure electric range than my first EV could. So, wow. So you could do all of that. And, people say, they could be a gateway to EVs, or are they starting to cause, prolong the thing? But they're in a perfect world. Some people, if they tow a caravan and stuff like that, they can't afford to have two cars, so they have one to tow the caravan. And this is a good compromise. Most people's commutes, I reckon, would be covered by the purely electric range. And then if you need to do stuff like tow a caravan or do something where the charging infrastructure is not quite there yet, you could do that. So it's a good compromise in some respects.
What's the weight of this hybrid? I'd expect that a 34 kilowatt hour battery plus a motor, it's going to be quite heavy, isn't it?
It's not heavier than like some of the smaller batteried ones. It's no heavier than like the it's a strange size, the Moda 9. It kind of sits between the Tucson size vehicle and the Santa Fe. It's kind of somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So but it's all-wheel drive, so it's an e-axle, which is good. So there's no real drive shaft, which is a good energy-saving thing. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it can do all the typical stuff, the modes where it can charge off the engine if it needs to. But the way it drives is more like, as long as if you could keep it below 75 miles an hour, it drives purely off the electric motors, and it just basically generates electricity. So it works similar to the way the Ampera that Alex had back years ago now.
But you had an Ampera, Alex?
Yeah, for 6 months back in 2012, 2013.
What was that like?
I got on really well with it, but it had some fairly major compromises. I mean, it had big T-shaped battery that took up a lot of the boot space and had this massive, almost like a massive transmission tunnel down through the middle of the vehicle. It had some very odd... the handover between regen and mechanical braking was quite grabby, and it would break traction quite strangely on going around corners. Like, it would feel like it was really stable because all the weight was low down, and then suddenly it just go and just let go of the road. And it used to catch on everything. You could get there was a big splitter on the front of it, which was really low to the ground, and it would just scrub on absolutely everything. It was like driving a modified car, and it's the only thing that would catch, other than like this thing, that would like catch on some of the speed bumps around here.
Yeah.
Apparently you could get a thinner lip spoiler for it, but you'd lose a couple of miles of electric range, I reckon.
Well, just to say hello to ex-Rotary Guy. Thanks for coming in from on the surface of the sun. You're obviously hot where you are. PWNE, hello from Arizona, another hot place. So, it's not been as hot as I thought it was going to be today, but supposedly it's going to be 33 degrees tomorrow. I must admit, I was getting some awful range yesterday in my Tesla in terms of efficiency. Kevin, you'd probably faint. I think it was 300s, like mid 300s. I don't think the winter tires I've put on it is really, really helping me out at the moment, unfortunately. But you're talking about plug-in hybrids, Kevin. So apparently there's been a big surge of hybrids recently in terms of sales, whereas Tesla has obviously done not so good from a sales point of view. Apparently hybrids as a whole have done a lot better. So, is this what we need? Do we need this blend of electric for people who have got workplace charging, who've got the driveways, and others having a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid that don't have that opportunity of charging cheaply? Do you think that is the right blend for us to have?
Well, I mean, I think the main thing is that with a plug-in hybrid, you still really need to be able to charge at home. It's more for those people who have those worries about long range still, which we all know the infrastructure's there. But some people do need that kind of thing. I think people who get the plug-in hybrids now, it'll probably be their last plug-in hybrid, because they'll realize, oh, I've done most of my commuting on electricity. Oh, I could have stopped. Like literally the trip I did across 9 countries, we did it on a single charge and a single tank of fuel. But if I worked out where the brake stops were, we drove past so many rapid chargers, and it can charge at 70 kilowatts rapid charging.
Wow.
So actually, we could have done most of it. We could have upped the electric range even further by charging it overnight. You think every time you charge overnight, there's an extra 100 miles. So we did 700 miles. You think that actually there was 3 nights where we could have charged that fully. So that's 300 miles of that done. Plus, you could rapid charge at opportunities as well. So actually, you could probably have done that on literally, half a tank. And there is a clever feature on it, which we got to test. So we actually deliberately ran out of fuel, probably about 6-7 kilometers from the end. And because it's a proper electric car powertrain, it can drive entirely on the battery. It just casually flashes up on the dashboard, electric power only available. And just drives.
Nice change.
Drive, because it always keeps like about 25 kilometers of range in the battery. So you've kind of got that last minute reserve to get back to either a rapid charger or to an old fashioned fuel station. So, I mean, we weren't sure what it was going to do. I don't think even the people on the thing were sure, because you've never deliberately run out, but it did it, and it was fine. It drove exactly the same. I think the only limitation is I think you can't go above 80 miles an hour when you're in pure electric mode, but that's more than is legal.
Yep. Go on, Alex. You were going to say something.
Yeah, there's a bit of backdrop to some of the plug-in hybrid stuff, which probably is worth bringing into it. One thing that is worth mentioning in the UK is the ZEV mandate is only part of a wider piece of regulation, which includes CO2 targets for non-ZEV vehicles. So manufacturers have to get a larger and larger share of electric. I mean, fuel cell as well counts, but it's almost all electric in the UK each year for cars and vans. But the rest of it also has to deliver CO2 emission reductions as well. Yeah. So they've got yearly targets to hit. Plug-in hybrid's obviously quite a good way to not only beat that, but to come in lower than that. And if you beat your target, your CO2 target in the UK, you can, through a very convoluted process, count some of that CO2 saving as extra electric vehicles. It's not. I'm taking out a few steps along the way. It's not a direct one-for-one translation. But if you sell, say, 10,000 vehicles and you're 10 grams per kilometre under it, you can count a share of that 10 grams per times 10,000 towards your ZEV target. So you don't have to hit your ZEV target, basically. What that means is there's a lot of incentives if you're a bit slow with the EV sales, as things have been a bit in the UK. You can claw some of that back by selling a lot of plug-in hybrids, and obviously they're getting quite good CO2 incentives with company car drivers. And that's the UK, so that's happened this year. In Europe, there's this year is the first year in Europe that CO2 targets across the board have used WLTP, which is the tougher CO2 standard. So it's gone from the old, slightly easier, really dated, 30-odd year old standard to the new one this year in Europe for the first time. So effectively what that amounts to is a tougher target. And again, that's going to push manufacturers to offer plug-in hybrids. Simultaneously then, in Europe, this is like I say, there's layers to it. You've got a change of Euro standards, which are the emission standards, which includes basically revising the way that you calculate the effect of CO2, of electric range on CO2. So it assumes basically a longer range with that CO2, with that zero emission chunk taken out of it. So effectively, you get less of an incentive for having the electric range, which is why you're suddenly starting to see a lot of vehicles coming out with long electric ranges, because you need that to stay under the CO2 thresholds for, getting a good advantage for selling those vehicles in Europe. So, we're going to see a lot of vehicles being retested or revised this year with longer ranges in Europe. But the interesting thing with the UK is we don't have to follow that because of Brexit. So we're still using the old system. And instead of saying to manufacturers they'd have to test twice, they've got a thing that can convert from this new system to the old system. So if you're a manufacturer and you're launching a vehicle for Europe with a much longer range, you can still get the... I've bored Tim off screen. You can get like a massive CO2 advantage on top of it that you wouldn't get in the rest of Europe, basically. So there's a lot of things going on the EV front, on the plug-in hybrid front at the moment, all of which are kind of pushing demand for them in terms of in the UK and in Europe, they're needed for the CO2 targets, which is quite a big deal at the moment. It's a big fines as well for not meeting them.
Yeah, sorry about that. So PWNE have just put America and China seem to both be gearing up for producing EREV trucks. So I feel like this might be a brief opportunity to build longer range trailer capable trucks before full electric domination. Domination. I think, yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a blend of different technologies for a little while. I mean, I think we're seeing that quite clearly now in the UK, where yes, okay, there has to be a reduction in the goal is a reduction of CO2, and yes, electric. Everything seems to be geared up for electric, and there doesn't seem to be much focus on targets or mandates for HVO or CNG and LNG. But it does feel, especially after the RTX show that I went to this week, the Road Transport Expo, which is mainly truck, that actually there does need to be more of a focus on blend and not has to be electric. It just, yeah, because a lot of things aren't ready yet. I think the 3 Ps this is my new thing, 3 Ps, which is God, I've got what they are. Say again. Payload, power, so power for the vehicles, and I've got the 3rd P, price. There we go. Payload, power, and price. Those are the 3 massive challenges around electrification of the bigger vehicles. So yeah, I think it does need to be a bit more of a blend, and that's what I thought would be quite interesting to start talking about. The plug-in hybrid that Kevin mentioned. It does feel that all this focus on CO2. Do you think eventually they're going to start focusing CO2 on electric vehicles? So looking back to see how these electric vehicles are made, how carbon intensive they are, where are they from, how did they get to the country that they're going to be used? Do you think, I mean, that's probably a question to Alex, really. Do you think that will come in? Because that's kind of more of a like scope 1, scope 2, isn't it? ESG targets.
Yeah, I mean, there is, in terms of battery materials and kind of recycled content in batteries and recyclability in batteries. But in terms of, I mean, I wonder if there's going to be more in terms of efficiency, or how you would go about calculating that or doing that in a fair way. Because at the moment, I mean, 2 EVs can have quite wildly different efficiency, even if they're in the same class, as we've found recently with things. There's and I think that's where you might need to differentiate a bit. But yes, I think the lifetime thing is kind of happening, but not in as direct a way. I think there is probably some caution among manufacturers that if you don't make sure that everything is squeaky clean, that you're lining yourself up for another Dieselgate if there's a loophole somewhere that has gone unexplored for years, that suddenly people go, oh, and it undermines the whole thing, because everyone goes, well, see, I told you they were bad, and all the rest of it.
Just a slightly off topic question. So, hello, Bix, and thanks for commenting. I think it's the first time you have. So, you've got a Tesla Model 3 short range or standard range. I used to call it a short range. Got in trouble for that. So, standard range 2024. Is it capable of Boost 50? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. I would double check with Nginx. They're the people to speak to, because they'll be able to allocate the right module for that. And I think someone was asking me who to fit it. I'm pretty sure that Dimitri, who's doing my EV conversion, could fit that for you. He's back in the country next month. So, yeah, if you want anyone fitting it for you, send us an email at chargeheads@gmail.com. But yeah, Yeah, there is so much work to do in terms of the decarbonisation piece, and I know that obviously we're in my 9 till 5 with Dynamon, we're doing these decarbonisation reports, and it always used to be, you know, EV transition software that we did, but now we do these reports, which, okay, yes, you can maybe electrify 10% of your fleet or more or less, but what else can you do to decarbonise? Because there's a lot of bigger companies, blue chip companies out there that have got these really robust ESG and decarbonisation targets, and you know, if they can't do electric, what else can they do? So I know we're kind of going off a little bit off piste here with the decarbonisation side, but I think it's interesting to talk about because I don't think it's talked about enough. So you know what the correct route is, bearing in mind we've got all this legislation coming through. So yeah, slightly off the car piece, but yeah, it's an interesting one. Roland's just put in there, Alex is right, parity on the ICE fuel extraction etc is also required. So yeah, because I mean that surely would encourage more European and maybe British you could argue manufacturers. I know that Jaguar with their new electric car, although not really a family friendly car, it's quite a big expensive thing, they're supposedly going to be using second life batteries. But I think if we can edge towards that in not more of a carrot rather than stick point of view, so the OEMs aren't getting battered, to reduce to improve the sustainability, the greenness, the carbon intensity of these vehicles, then I think that's got to be a good thing.
It's being regulated on an EU level as well. I mean, there are proposed regulations going through for ease of, I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, ease of dismantling and kind of recovering usable parts, mechanical parts, particularly batteries and motors as well, from electric vehicles and all vehicles, you know, end of life. So designing that kind of ease of dismantling into vehicles at the start. There are proposals in Europe to do that, which is, I think, is good. And a lot of that is down to the fact that they want to kind of keep these vehicles on the road as long as possible, because the transition to, I mean, this is one of the big things, I think, is it's about making the vehicles last longer and longer to just kind of amortize that initial carbon footprint from manufacturing over as long a life cycle as possible. And these vehicles can do that. It's just a case of kind of making, you know, designing repairability into them from the start, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think going back to the kind of the HGV stuff Tim was talking about, there's other clever stuff that's coming on board. I think I saw a report today that Tesco's are looking at their refrigeration lorries now to put loads of solar on the roof to take the edge off running that refrigeration unit as well. So there's lots of clever things that people don't consider. It's not just the truck pulling it with these refrigeration things. People forget there's a big like diesel engine running that fridge for X amount of time, you know, and they are starting to do the equivalent of shore power on them. So when they're at the depot, it's not running the engine, it's plugged in and things. And you think that there's a reasonable amount of solar panel space on the top of a truck roof too. You make those use less fuel.
Yeah. I mean, the Tesco's are going to be doing, or they are doing a lot around electrification and decarbonisation at the moment. So I don't think it'll be long before you see a lot more alternative fuel vehicles. I mean, they already run apparently quite a few. I can't remember what the number or percentage is, but it's a high number of CNG trucks already. And I mean, at RTX, Iveco launched their new CNG truck. They haven't really got a electric truck in the UK yet. It's the last HGV manufacturer not to have an electric truck, because MAN have got one, Merc or Daimler, if you like, DAF. Some of them are actually on their second generation. So yeah, there's so much going on with the work with the ZHID, the Zero Emission Heavy Goods Infrastructure Demo, where there's government grants going in. So companies have an electric or alternative fuel vehicle for a lot less, and the infrastructure and the analysis, which a lot of stuff that Dynamon does, that I work for. So yeah, the only problem is the price at the moment. See, once the ZHID is done, you're not paying £250,000 for a truck. You're going to be paying sort of 500,000 again until these prices start coming down, which I hope they do, because that really is going to make or break it. But you know, luckily there are talk about dynamo all the time, but you know, we've got a TCO for understanding the cost of the vehicle, the infrastructure, the power, and everything else. So there is a way of understanding what the TCO looks like. Is it going to be comparable to a diesel truck in 5, 7, 10 years time? And this is the sort of information that needs to be out there, so fleets can make the right decision, not only from a focus and direction towards decarbonisation, but to make sure that it doesn't, you know, financially hurt them. So yeah, it's such a big topic. This massive.
And the thing is, if you don't give people a viable alternative, they'll stick with what they've got and they'll run it into the ground, and that's not progress either. You need to have greener solutions to fill the gaps where the greenest solutions are not, you know, are not working.
Yeah, Mark Cornwell's put not a lot of info about how green Chinese EV manufacturers are. Now, what really bugs me about China, a lot of people moan about coal power stations in China. However, you don't see a lot of the good work, or you don't hear about a lot of the good work they are doing around renewables and solar and, you know, battery storage and all the rest of it. And I think that is, you know, yes, they have got the coal power stations out there, but they are making so much progress on the other side as well. But yeah, it would be interesting, Mark. And just to finish off the point, I think there was another question about the Engine X. Okay, also, if I were to install the Engine X Boost 50, this is basically a remap device that you can plug into your Tesla to give it more power and other functions. And then I uninstall it after. Will Tesla know that I have done that because mine is lease? I'm pretty sure, again, double check with Engine X just to cover one's backside. I'm pretty sure once you take it out again, you're absolutely fine. Tesla wouldn't know. But yeah, double check with Engine X. Yeah, so Roland's chipped in again. I would like to see a way of PXing my current battery into a Powerwall in exchange for a new higher capacity, denser battery. Absolutely. You know, this one of the reasons why I like having the Tesla and BMW i3s. You can already get a replacement battery from China, and we had Avidas on, who's done a few battery swaps. I think the cars that have had mass volume out there, the EVs, I think that there will obviously be replacement batteries out there, because it just seems to be an opportunity. Revenue maker for business out there. So I think, yeah, that's got to be a future for EVs, like I said, because, you know, they can certainly do the mileage if we just replace the parts. You know, as long as it keeps going and doesn't rust away like old Rusty next to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that we've still got this massive narrative that people say is you can't reuse batteries because you don't know what they've been done and they're going to catch fire. And I just wish people would get over that, because it's not a thing, that they are tested and stuff like that. You're not going to put a physically damaged pack in a vehicle. You're going to actually look and check it. That's what they do. And it's just like, you know, I've actually been banned from someone's YouTube channel for saying that batteries don't catch fire.
Well, I mean, it's quite a general statement, that, because I think they do, but just not as often as.
All I did was put the stats down, and then the next message was
incredible stats there, Kev. You know.
Yeah. So then the next statement was Kevin has to go. So and then I was blocked.
I didn't even know you could block people from your YouTube. That's interesting. Not that I'm looking to block anyone
from commenting.
Yeah. Funnily enough, Kevin put the cat amongst the pigeons on, I think it was LinkedIn, talking about, and this kind of ties in quite well with the hybrid, plug-in hybrid, conversation from earlier, that EVs are no good for emergencies. So let's say I've just come back from a long trip and I've got 5-10% in my battery, depending on the car, of course, and I'm not able to get to the hospital. And as soon as we get home, you know, something happens, you know, touch wood, nothing will happen ever, and you can't get to the hospital because you haven't got enough range. Yes, there's DC chargers on the way. Is it gonna, you know, will it make a difference to that emergency situation? There's a lot of what ifs in there. But I suppose if people are that worried, then maybe a plug-in hybrid is better for them.
Or devil's advocate here. I mean, if one of my parents was in hospital 200 or 300 miles away, and had an hour to live or whatever, that's not 200 or 300 miles away. It's not going to work. But, you know, if one of my parents was a long way away in hospital and I needed to get to them quickly and I couldn't do it in the car, I'd rent a taxi. Like, what value do you put? I mean, I know it's a lot of money, but like, you know, what value do you put on being able to see them for the last time? If you absolutely if you're facing that situation, it's unavoidable, then you have to stomach the alternatives and just, you know, as a one-off. So yeah, I mean, my argument is that yes, I mean, I think under those rare circumstances, yes, an ICEV has got advantages in that you can just go and sling some fuel in it and just drive. And if you drive like a prat because you're trying to get somewhere as quickly as you can, not that I'm advocating that, you can still you can stop on the way and just splash a little bit more in there and keep going. But I think ultimately, if it gets to that situation where you have to get to something really, really quickly and your car can't do it, you'll find an alternative in those situations. And thankfully, they're rare. I mean, they're not kind of a common occurrence. Not owning a car and living around the possibility that might happen is it's not entirely logical to think that way.
The closest I've ever got to something like that was, you could argue, yesterday. So I come back from the Tesla Supercharge show. I had 10% left in my battery. It was an emergency in my daughter's eyes. She needed to get to her friend's house as soon as possible because otherwise she was going to miss out. So I drove all the way to Bedford. And I mean, I could have probably made it there and got to the charger, but I didn't really want to risk it. So I did a volt and bolt at the Bedford Brew Point. It's a good little charging hub there. They've got Chem Power chargers there. And next door, McDonald's, they've got some, I want to say grid serve ones.
Instavolt's will be McDonald's, won't they?
They were so Instavolt, yeah, Instavolt. Sorry, thank you, Kev. But yeah, it's so expensive. First of all, they wanted £45 to start charging, and it was like £5 for 5 kilowatt hours. Bearing in mind that would have cost me like 30 something pence at home, which is a bit eye watering. But it's convenience, isn't it? At the end of the day, I just, yeah. Obviously, I don't like charging publicly. I have to. It's Tesla, but yeah, that one occasion that. And I don't really often charge anything other than Tesla. It was 130 kilowatts, so pretty quick. I was only there for a short space of time, but yeah, that's where I think things could be better. It's price. Price always kills me. I'm so tight.
Yeah. But I suppose the issue,
you get somewhere, you just pay the price, don't you?
Yeah, true. Go on, Kev.
Yeah, and I suppose I'm quite lucky the fact that we're a 2 EV household. The same as you, Tip. The likelihood of them both being empty is quite rare.
That's true.
One is generally full.
I could take the West tester, actually. That's a very good point. I was just So
that's the thing. I think it's a very rare use case and stuff. And I think, you know, if you live your life like that, you're not going to change and stuff. Because I did comment back before, you know, I said we'll agree to disagree on this. But I'm sure there was the same transition when people went from the horse to the car. You know, and I said, but the problem is horses are so slow to fuel. You have to fuel them overnight. But maybe every 40 miles you could have a horse swapping station where you swap to a different horse.
That existed. You know, that's a good point. We'll come back to that. PEWNE, for folks who don't believe recyclability or reusability, point towards the Monroe live tour of the Redwood Materials Battery Recycling Tour. They build Second Life energy storage solutions too. I mean, there's such an opportunity with Second Life batteries, whether it's EV conversions, whether it's battery storage or recycling. I just think, you know, it'd be nice if, yes, there's people like Dala up in Finland, I think he is. Check out his channel. He's got lots of cool stuff going on. He's got ways, I think he's got technology where you can pretty much connect any car battery to your house, but then it's like the safety, and you don't really want to, you know, from an insurance point of view, obviously you can't have the battery in your house. So it'd be nice if there was some regulations, some other companies that actually produced some robust and reliable retrofit connections and fitting of these sort of things, because these batteries are so cheap now, so cheap. I mean, probably under a grand for like a lot of batteries out there now, which could power your house for a good few days. So yeah, I think there is a massive opportunity there. Yeah, I haven't seen anyone doing it in mass yet. Obviously, you've got people like Felton, Connecting Energy, a couple of other ones out there that are doing battery storage in big BESS storage solutions. Maybe that's the answer, utilizing it for balancing the grid and, you know, charging infrastructure. for people who haven't got the benefit of having big power near them.
Yeah, talking about second life batteries, actually a bit of news which I'd forgotten to mention today is Hyundai have launched a design for a built-in fire suppression system on their batteries.
Nice.
So basically it will detect it and it can extinguish it itself. So,
well, since though we're talking about new cars, something that very much excited me was the new Mercedes AMG XX. Can you see that on the... No. Why is it so small?
In a little window.
It's a little bit, very small window. Let's see if we can sort this out. Hang on. Let's just put it on again. No. There he is. There he is. Right. Okay. Let's just... So this is the new, dramatic music, AMG XX. Now, I had a little quick look at the figures, and it was 800-volt architecture, always, minimum charge 850 kilowatts, can charge at 750 kilowatts. The 0 to 100 was like something ridiculous as well, but it looks an absolute eyeful. Chaps, what do you reckon?
It's got quite a lot of... it reminds me of the Taycan and the Panamera. Not that that's a bad thing.
I say it's gorgeous. I think it's absolutely gorgeous.
It is a very striking car. Yeah,
it's got that angry look to it, hasn't it?
Yeah. I'm guessing there'll be a camera for the rear, and it says when it's charging, it says charging at the back. It's a real eyeball. Apparently, it will do like 200 miles in about 5 minutes. In fact, here I've got some of the stats in front of me here. So obviously 4-wheel drive. The motor made by USA, which was a UK brand. But 250 miles in about 5 minutes.
Yes, is the they do the the pancake motors. I can't know what they're called.
I know the ones. Yeah, the one that they're in Spikers, aren't they, or something like that?
Yeah, there's been a few test cars that have kind of used them, but they haven't really been commercialized yet. Very, very compact, very flat motors.
1,340 brake horsepower, just enough, I'd say. I mean, what an absolute machine! A very, very tasty machine. Let's try and get this. There we go. Back again. So I'm just trying to find the acceleration figures. It was 0 to 120 odd miles an hour in like 7 seconds or something ridiculous like that. It was pretty tasty. But yeah, I mean, if Mercedes are bringing that out, then amazing. It will do more than 223 miles an hour, 0 to 124 in 5 seconds. How about that?
Yeah, but EVs are soulless. I'd much rather have a diesel C-Class because that's much more exciting.
Yeah, I really like the rattle that it makes, especially on a cold morning. Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of negativity, surprise, from the Chiro Petrolheadism crew, where he's got invited to, I think, Goodwood to do a review on the BYD stuff, and he's sharing that I would never drive a soulless, this, that, the other. To be fair, I sent him a message. I said, I think you're being really short-sighted with your opinion on cars. He did actually send me something arguably quite good back. I didn't really have much to say about other than the fact that I still think he is being short-sighted. Let me find it. Here we go. So he put, how can it be short-sighted? Let EV be an alternative like a McPlant burger. Works for some, doesn't work for others. Fair enough. If McDonald's asked me to attend a McPlant burger celebration event at a beef convention, I would relevantly respond in the same way. I kind of get his point there. I said, good point. You do you, Chiro. However, there are some exciting EVs out there, and this is just the beginning. Because it is. Yeah. The opportunity for like modifying and all the rest of it, which is obviously my kind of forte, my kind of passion. That's where I see the opportunity in EVs. And if fair enough, he's got skin in the game. He runs Petrolheadism after all.
But the thing is Goodwood has never been a petrol show. It's been a car show. It's always encompassed cars.
Mm.
And speed, it's a festival of speed. It doesn't say it could be hydrogen. Well, there was, remember, Rowan Atkinson drove that hydrogen-powered Toyota up the hill. And, it's about just vehicles in general.
Celebration of automotive culture, and EVs, like it or not, are part of automotive culture. They just are, and they always will be.
But they're soulless, Alex. They're soulless.
Exactly. It's so
Let's get
boring.
onto this, right? I'll just mention Mark's just chipped in to say, why do they put LEDs on EVs when they're charging? Not discreet at home when folks are walking home from the pub. Yeah, I'm guessing you can turn it off. I'd hope so anyway. But they do look cool. You got to admit, it does look quite cool. But yeah, from that point of view. So yeah, souls in EV. I know we've probably touched on it before, but I think we need to revisit this. What makes a car have a soul? Alex, go.
Oh boy. It's not necessarily performance. It's not necessarily style. It's just doing things a little bit differently. I think, for example, I would argue that Mark's Twizy has soul. I would argue that the Renault 5 has soul. I've just picked two Renaults out the blue there. Whereas I would argue, if you thought about something like, I don't know, just your average kind of diesel Focus doesn't have a soul, but then they're quite good to drive, I suppose. So you could argue that there's, I think a lot of it as well comes down to, I'm giving you my usual long-winded answer here. A lot of it comes down to experiences as well with the car. You can have a quite soulless car that develops a soul through living with it and the experiences that you unlock in that car. You could have the most boring car in the world, but if you take that car from Paris to Peking on a Paris to Peking rally or Peking to Paris rally, and you live a lot of life in that car, it's got a soul, it's got a character, it's picked up right away, it's earned it. And yes, that's
It does have a soul.
Paul R has just put Kia has a soul. I'll get my coat. Love it, love it.
And in the interest of balance, and a petrol car's not having soul, and since Alex mentioned two Renaults, does a Dacia Sandero have soul? I'd say it's a utilitarian vehicle to get you from A to B.
The thing is, most cars are relatively soulless. Petrol, diesel, hybrid, electric. Most modern cars are kind of samey, very competent, very good vehicles. Not an overly interesting piece of kit. I think the problem is that people kind of say this and they're thinking of, I don't know, something fairly ordinary like a Leaf or something. I mean, I think actually an early Leaf has got some soul to it on account of the fact that it was so different and it was interesting at the time. But
soul has probably degraded quite heavily.
Yes, yeah, it's splitting and trying to get out of its container. But yeah, I think
why has a car got a soul and my house hasn't? Why has no one got a house with a soul? And let's not talk about haunted houses here.
I was going to say you don't want them with a soul. Those
a charming country cottage in the woods has a soul, doesn't it?
Souls of children that have been burnt by called Hansel and Gretel. Yeah, it's. I don't know. I mean, I think it's just romanticized, isn't it? Because vehicles are away. Certainly, when I was 17, passed my test, all I wanted to do was escape the house, and that was, the escapism. Romanticize that. The crescendo and of the revs hitting the rev limiter and it breaking down, it not always working. I think it's romanticized, really.
It's freedom, isn't it? It's the freedom to go places. You can't go on a road trip in your house generally. Well, okay, there are some exceptions to houses that you can go on a road trip, but generally you can't.
My 50-year-old Rover P6 V8 has soul. It has a living, breathing thing. My 13... It's just a living, breathing thing. I thought you were going to say it's like got mold in it or something. It's something breathing inside it. My 13 Insignia diesel does not. So why though? Why?
There's a podcast I listen to, American guys called Overcrest, and they've done an episode of this about earning it and how has your car earned it. And it's a really interesting discussion about similar sort of thing where it's certain cars just have that certain something to them, and sometimes they're born, sometimes they're born with it. Sometimes some cars just have it, they just come with that at the factory, and other cars earn it through experiences and through what's the word? I can't remember what they're called. But yeah, when you certain vehicles have done things and experienced things and have been an opportunity to unlock experiences, and that's how they gain it as well.
I did like your username though, grimy banger. That's great. I love that. Paul R, I'm sure when the combustion engine came along with steam tractors, said the same. You can't feed these newfangled cars with coal. It has no soul. That even rhymes. So Trevor, thanks for chipping in. I've been fixing my cars for 35 years. Now I want an easy life, so I'm looking at getting a Tesla. But my worry is I am buying an expensive laptop and I can't fix it in the future. I mean, but what the thing is, you can, because if you've fixed your cars in the past, you've probably been fixing brakes, suspension, things like that. And to be fair, there's not really much else that you really need to sort out on an electric car, generally speaking. And that goes to showing the comment I made at the beginning, Johnny Smith buying that 260,000 mile Tesla Model S 65 plate. It just needed a fuse, which they got to from underneath the car. You just needed Tesla toolbox, which you can buy, and some suspension bits. So yeah, I think you can keep it going yourself if you want. And yes, it has got a laptop. It's just that's tech. That's the world we live in these days. Sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, and I think as well, when you look at that, cars have had computers in them for decades now. You look, Alex's Polo has an engine management computer, so the tech has been in them. It's just people have evolved and trained up on how to fix those things, and that's going to continue with people being able to fix the newer technology.
And the beauty of having a Tesla in your car. Sorry, say again, mate.
I mean, like, how old is the computer in your car, Alex?
35 years old. So yeah.
Yeah. And you could argue that with a Tesla, you can go into service mode and do the stuff anyway. So if any electric car is good for fettling with at a later date, if you want to fix it in the future, Tesla's probably the thing, because you can go into that service mode and all the information is online or on the toolbox to sort it out.
I saw really interesting on that note before we move on to comment. But I saw an Instagram, and there's a guy over in the States who's doing replacement screens for Teslas, because I know some of the early Model S's had an issue where the glue would run out the back of the screens, and they're using an aftermarket screen, and it's almost a plug and play job. They just take the old screen itself out of the case, clean it all up, and fit the old power electronics with the new, with the new screen. So
yeah, because that was an early issue, wasn't it? Because Tesla, in the early days, didn't necessarily use automotive-grade electronics, so it was a consumer-grade screen, which didn't appreciate being frozen in the winter and cooked in the summer.
They definitely get hot. Mark's made a really good point, and I'm sure it's come up before. Why does everyone compare an EV against a V8 when they drive a diesel? It's a very good point, because ultimately, if they drove an electric car, if they have a charger at home, they could probably afford a cheap diesel with the money they save, arguably. So yeah, it's we're trying to stay balanced here, chaps, and I think we do a pretty good job, because ultimately we are kind of into all cars. I'm not really a massive diesel fan, I'll be completely honest with you, but I am a car person.
It's kind of had its day, isn't it? Diesel's kind of had its day. It's now, you don't have it on small cars. It's just so expensive to clean up the emissions. You can't make an affordable little diesel. So it's going to bigger and bigger things where these emission treatments can be done on scale. So a truck, when you're paying, as Tim will know, how much a truck costs, there's a lot of scope for diesel treatment in that. On your little Super Mini, there's no scope for that. And it's getting sort of small. I mean, and that's where you're getting things like plug-in hybrids stepping into it, because it's easier to clean up petrol than it is a diesel.
Yeah. What's the smallest diesel you guys have ever owned?
I've the smallest diesel, the only diesel I've ever owned is a Kia Sportage. The smallest one I've ever driven was a C1. And you could actually get a Citroen C1 diesel.
Oh yes. Wow.
And the thing was, they were so efficient as a petrol car that the diesel made no sense whatsoever. You'd have to do astronomical mileage in it to make the price difference pay for itself,
wouldn't want
and
to
you
in
just
one of
wouldn't want to do that.
No.
So
That little,
noisy.
that little
The
1 litre
aspirator as well, I think.
that little 1 litre 3-cylinder Daihatsu engine in, you know, the C1 and the 107 and the Toyota Aygo was a great little engine. And that was the first car that I helped buy my stepson. It was a Yaris with the same engine. Bought it with 96,000 miles on it for like 670 quid. He used it for 3 years, put it up to about 125,000 miles, and then he sold it for about 600 quid with a broken gearbox. It was crunching a bit in third. So no, I'm very yeah, I think that's a great car. I had a Citroen AX diesel. I didn't have. Apparently, it won this special rally between like some amazing efficiency. Kev, look it up. You'll be all over it. But I only had it for like a few weeks because I then got a company car, sold it to my mate, and he put it right in the ditch. Probably actually quite a rare car. But there we go. What about you, Kev?
Smallest diesel I used to, and when I first started driving a 70-mile-round commute, I had a Vauxhall Corsa 1.3 CDTI. That was an award-winning engine at the time, that little diesel, because it replaced a MG ZR petrol, which may have gone back under warranty due to the fact it broke a lot from brand new.
What are you going to say, Alex?
I was going to say I've realised that I've driven possibly one of the smallest diesel engines ever made. I've driven a 0.8 litre 2-cylinder diesel engine, which is probably one of the most efficient diesel engines ever made as well, in the XL1, the Volkswagen XL1. Yeah, made a weird noise. Engine.
Not a fan of those things.
And do you know what the other that has something weirdly in common with mine, other than the badge? Volkswagen in the 80s made a small number of 2-cylinder diesel G40 Polos, so a supercharged 2-cylinder diesel engine, and it's been completely forgotten about until recently. And they've got photos of it on the Volkswagen newsroom, and I was like, it exists. It's quite nice to see pictures of it. It's weird though.
I'm so glad that Malcolm Fowler has chipped in, because I literally I had it in my mind, the turbo intercooler badge on the back of Vauxhall Novas. And he's just chipped in to say Vauxhall Nova 1.5 TD was the smallest diesel. Did it have the turbo intercooler badge on it? I'm thinking that is the right car, isn't it? The Nova. And I think maybe on some other ones. That's a very cool badge.
Didn't it only get the intercooler on the Astra?
Maybe it was on the Astra then. Very cool badge. What about converting older pickup trucks, likely from the 1970s to 1990s, have few electronics as well as easier to convert, which can be used again? I'm a massive fan of American pickups that are converted to electric. I'm not a massive Defender guy, although Dimitri's doing my EV, sent me a really good video because he's in America at the moment of a Defender popping and banging, which I think he was very pleased about. Is the Ford, what's the Ford equivalent? Ford
F-150?
Bronco.
Bronco.
Yeah,
Very cool car. But I look, because those pickups, you can put in those Tesla Model 3 batteries, which are nice and long. You put them in the bed. But I'm pretty sure there's quite a few kits coming out in America for that sort of stuff. Oh goodness me, I can't remember the name of the company now. But yeah, there are quite a few out there in terms of kits. And that was the only thing that used to put me off having an American car was the fuel economy. And funnily enough, just had Lucky's sills done because they're a bit rusty. I have to swap names of my Teslas. And he's got Smoking the Bandit. What's it called? What's the sports car from Smoking the Bandit?
Firebird.
Is it Firebird?
Pontiac Firebird, yeah.
It's not a Firebird.
Yeah.
It's Trans Am, isn't it?
Trans Am. Yeah, he's got a Trans Am, a turbo Trans Am, but it's had the turbo engine taken out weirdly. But that looks an absolute... Love things like that. Love to have...
when BMW owned Rover, you could, for a short period of time, get the Defender with a BMW straight 6 petrol engine in it.
Oh, really?
I think that might be might be quite an interesting thing. I think it was a South African market one, but they did a V8 for North America, which made like 170 horsepower. Chris Evans had one, and they had an external roll cage to pass US safety regulations. But they're not as popular as they were, because now you can import European spec defenders of the same age, and you can put V8s in them for less money than you'd spend on proper American spec one. But Land Rover have got one on their. Well, there's a Land Rover museum have got one, and it was quite an interesting thing to drive. It made a great noise. Wasn't particularly quick. It's an interesting one too.
Well, PWN have just mentioned ARM make a kit to mount the Model S rear subframe into a Chevrolet half-ton truck.
It's changed it to AEM.
AEM, yeah.
Not advanced risk machines, which make computers different.
Yes. AEM actually do quite a few bits for EV conversions out there, in terms of like controllers and stuff like that. So they've obviously got into it. But people like Legacy EV, I think, are one of the companies, and there's lots in America at the moment. Whether that dies a death with all the stuff that's going on in America, because I think obviously Trump's trying to wind back some of the incentives, although I think he's getting a bit of a pushback from a lot of sides on that. So it'd be interesting to see, whether the companies keep going out there. And because and apparently this is in the news as well. New York have an ambitious EV target, but they face challenges on infrastructure. It's always down to infrastructure. Because they're planning to get light duty vehicles zero emission by 2035 and the medium to heavy to 2045. Sounds like I need to make a call. Sounds like they need some EV planning using Dyno One software. Trump targets EV tax credits. Judge blocks charger funding cuts because they've got a charger funding cut. Sorry, a charger funding. In the UK, it's called Levi. Over there, it's called NEVI. So
NEVI. Yeah, NEVI's the one I was talking about last week, where it's a $5 billion thing and it's allocated by the states, and it's on hold for new guidance. They haven't managed to get rid of it, but they're reforming it and bringing it back with new guidelines, supposedly to streamline it, make it more cost positive, and ensure that nobody has like mask mandates and vaccine mandates for it. But New York follows California's rules. So the thing with Trump at the moment is he's removed the ability for California Air Resources Board to set their own rules and for other states to follow them. So New York is one of the states that's following California. There's about 12 or 13 states across America that are all following California's underlying emissions rules, as opposed to the EPA's ones, which are also being reformed. So basically, it's a double hit on those CO2 targets, which is big, and it's going through the courts in a massive way at the moment.
I'm going to come back to that, but PWN has just said American hot rodders will never stop, but I think they're called cold rodders now, something along those lines. I'm sure I've seen an Instagram account to that effect. Fight back. I love that. Thanks for chipping in. Thanks for your precious time, sir. Love to hear about your views and lots of wishes for a bright and huge success for you all. Very kind. Mark's chipped in. Good old Trump. He doesn't want to drive a pewter. Not sure what that is.
Everything's computer. He was sat in the Tesla on the White House lawn. Computer.
It's I don't want to get too political because I'm sure that will divide it a little bit more. But it does seem that a lot of the centre right, let's call it, political parties, including the UK, are very much poo-pooing a lot of the good work. There's some not so good work from a electrification point of view, and I'm not saying all the work from electrification point of view is efficient and the money's going in the right places. However, it does seem that is going to be a bit of a battle moving forward for sure. But yeah, an interesting one. There was some more news. This was quite an exciting one. Apparently QuantumScape, which is a major solid state battery kind of company, they've unveiled a Cobra separator, which is it's a company that's backed by Volkswagen and quite a few other people. So sounds like that they've made some good steps forward with that, because although it does sound like some of the Chinese manufacturers are using semi-solid state batteries, it still seems a way off at the moment. Guys, you heard anything on that, on the solid state?
Well, I think the other news as well is IM is launched, which is the luxury brand for MG, and they're going to have a semi-solid state one. But the interesting thing is they've changed the name, so it's now IM, but it's going to have MG in the title. So it's something like MG. So MG's in it. What? I've gone from the top of my head. So
I'm a militant.
It
always reminds me of Militant Grandad. I don't.
Yeah, but so basically, it's IM like provided by MG.
IM presented by MG Motor.
That's the one. Yeah.
Well, they seem. I mean, MG seem to really be smashing it. Obviously, part of SIAC. They seem to be. I mean, I think Auto Trader put out a study recently. Ian Plummer, who's I can't remember his role, but he's high up there. He was sending it out on LinkedIn that the MG seems to be kind of doing the best from a new, used, all kind of capacities point of view. I mean, having sat in the new MG5,
ES5,
yeah, that's it, MG S5. I was really impressed with that for the price compared to everything else out there. And this is the key, isn't it? It's not just about going for luxury, all out, you know, I was going to say something untoward there. All out kind of cheap spec. It's getting that balance right. Just like the Renault 5 has got it right. Just like it seems like from an SUV point of view, the MG ZS did early doors. And yeah, I think it's just getting that balance right is absolutely key to having a successful EV.
And the other thing as well is you've got loads of brands, Chinese brands now looking at plants in Europe and the UK, because they can see there's tariffs in Europe. I think Moda already has a factory in Spain, which is their R&D, and they make the European cars in Spain. So they're all shifting that. So like we had the Hondas, the Nissans coming to the UK, I think you're going to start having the Sykes, the Cherry, all the different Chinese brands starting to do plants in Europe and the UK, which is going to be good for UK jobs at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, for sure. Let's just see, see how the new Nissan Leaf goes. I know that we covered it last week. So, and anyone that didn't watch or listen to it last week, either watch it on YouTube or Spotify, because we've got every single episode, the last 10, I think, on Spotify. I normally release it after this live the next day. And I did on Spotify. It's not just the sound, it's also video. So I've actually shared the video and sound on Spotify last week. And I didn't even tell the chaps this new breakthrough that I had on working out Spotify. So yeah, because we talked about EV banger racing, which I do want to cover again, chaps. I think we're a little away from EV banger racing, but I still, I want to keep talking about it, and hopefully we can get some sponsors, get somewhere to do it, and yeah, I think it would be such a good laugh. But going back to the comments here. Good old Trump. He doesn't want. Oh no, we did that one. Sorry. MG4 is the Model 2 Tesla should have built.
It's also partially the ID3 that Volkswagen should have built.
Yeah, but the MG4 is not that reliable. It's glitchy. It isn't that reliable. It's not the best made thing in the world. I've not driven one yet, but I'm just basing it on a lot of the feedback that I've had from quite a few people recently.
Do you think a lot of the issues are software related, which they seem to have got right with the the MG S5. So all those things, I mean, it's so easy to fix software issues, which is the software-defined car has disadvantages, but it also has advantages. You can fix stuff afterwards. So, and actually, I've just a thought on sort of software and technology. Remember we mentioned that Mercedes earlier in the podcast, being 800-volt architecture. If it follows the trends of the new A-Class, it doesn't support charging on 400-volt chargers, which actually narrows your charging thing. It doesn't have the ability. So Ioniq 5, EV6, all of those have the ability to at least do about 100 kilowatts by putting it through their motor inverters. But the Mercedes on the A-Class, they said they weren't going to do that, and so it can't charge at 4. So that limits you to only the newest charging infrastructure. You can't just rock up a 50 kilowatt one necessarily, because it just won't work. That's
a really crap decision. Let's call that out. That's not a sensible thing to do, is to, you end up with a kind of Betamax VHS kind of scenario where you want to give people all the options that that you can with this. It just doesn't feel very wise to limit them. But
yeah, I'm guessing it's probably a weight thing, because there's an extra weight to having that conversion process on the car. But that would be like you not including an onboard charger to AC charger to save weight, wouldn't it? So you can only charge it on rapids. Like the XL1 did have an off-board charger, didn't it?
I was going to say, yeah, the suitcase in the back that you could take out for your NEDC testing.
Random. Right, guys, I think we've come to a natural end here. Thanks everyone who's listened. Don't forget to share. If you've only just started watching, you can listen to it back on Spotify. I'll have it on there by later tonight, if not tomorrow morning. Thanks for everyone for chipping in.
What are we doing this week then? We've forgotten.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, okay. What we're doing this week? I'm just bloody busy, and I'm going to be editing a hell of a lot for this Tesla supercharged video that I'm going to be getting out. Where a load of modified EVs. We started at Oxford Services and went all the way to Bicester, kind of heritage place. And yeah, it was a great event. I've got to drive the Sebring as well. The Sebring electric car looks like a Porsche. It's got a Tesla Model 3 motor in the back. So yeah, I'm going to put that video in there as well. But it was the prototype, and they've been fettling with it recently to improve it. And they're doing a coupe soon as well, which is very exciting. Kev, what are you doing?
So I'm in the new facelifted Kia EV6. So that's interesting. And the press car I've got has got quite a cool number plate, which I wish I'd thought of, because it's K800 VLT, because it's Kia 800 volt architecture. Nice.
Alex, how are the squirrels getting on?
Busy. Yeah, it's a week of secret squirrel stuff this week, I'm afraid. But interrupted by last week's delayed sports days for the kids. So yeah, I've got a couple of days of not being at my desk very much this week, which is fine.
Good stuff. Just had another comment whacked in. Let's just finish with this. So specifically directed at me. With battery tech evolving so rapidly, new chemistries, prismatic cells, 4680s, high cycle life batteries, how do you or companies you work with decide which battery type is best for an EV? It's a good question. I think, well, I'll just put it in context with Dynamon, who I work with. We focus on range, feasibility, which goes hand in hand with range, and charging speed. So I think those are the two kind of main factors. Bear in mind, fleets only generally keep their vehicles for 3-5 years. Arguably, to make the figures work from a cost point of view for EV, with the cost of infrastructure, potentially power as well, although you could get some back by leasing or renting out your chargers. I think from a battery chemistry point of view, I think ultimately you've got your NMC and the LFP in most vehicles, and there's benefits for both. NMC benefits, obviously you've got the weight, the power and cost, and then LFP longevity does tend to be better, and the battery degradation does tend to be better, and you can charge them up to 100. So that's probably the best way I can answer that. Probably sitting on the fence a little bit, but trying to show benefits for both sides. Hopefully that has answered your question. Loving questions like that, so keep them flying over for next week. But thanks everyone for chipping in once again, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.